Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of What's the Buzz? My name is Chris Frew, founder of BioBuzz Networks. And I'm excited to be joined today by Mark VanderZyl, director of Connect Labs Baltimore. Mark, how's it going?
Wonderful. Beautiful day in Baltimore. How are you, Chris?
Doing great. Yeah, beautiful Friday. We got a little snow coming down. It's like a little winter wonderland here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I'll do a little housekeeping here for everybody. So if this is your first time joining, What's the Buzz is an opportunity for us at BioBuzz to celebrate ecosystem builders. So for us, ecosystem builders are the people that support all the companies and the initiatives and programs that are needed to help you bring your device or your therapy to market. We often say it takes a village, right? And that's what I'm excited to talk to Mark about today. And I think him and I are kindred spirits in a lot of the ways we think about building that village up. If you don't follow BioBuzz, we care about really three things: storytelling, which we think is really important; community, bringing people together, which we think is critical for ecosystems; and workforce. The people are really the foundation that help build your company, take your products to market, and really make things happen. So those are three things we care about each and every day. Please subscribe. Make sure you follow us on these go out on YouTube, live on LinkedIn, on Facebook too, I think, if people are still there. I'm not the marketing guy, Mark. I'm like,
maybe my aunt will watch it.
Yeah, tell your aunt to watch. We still got to get on TikTok. Anyway, please subscribe. And we are sponsored by CRB, some good friends of mine. I always say CRB is the real ecosystem builder. So they're a design, construction, engineering firm specializing in life sciences. So there's a good chance that you drive around, or if you look around the lab you're working in, it was built, designed, or constructed by CRB. So we really appreciate them. They support BioBuzz in all of our markets in Philadelphia, the Capital Region, and in North Carolina. So thanks to CRB for building the ecosystems that we all get to work in and do amazing things in. So yeah, Mark, let's dive into it. So tell everybody a little bit about what you do and a little bit about Connect Labs.
Sure. What's funny, I quote my old boss, Brian Stansky, all the time. I joked, I saw him recently. I told him I had like an 8-year postdoc in his lab. I don't have a PhD, but he used to say that we were customer support and overhead. And he was being like self-deprecating on purpose, but like my job is to facilitate other people's success, and I get to talk about the exciting and impactful things that they are doing and how we can help facilitate that. And so whenever, if it sounds like I'm being boastful or bragging, it's on someone else's behalf. Like I like to talk about what they're doing and how what we are doing enables that. I've tracked over 300 tours that I've given between Fast Forward and Connect Labs over the years. And the most compelling thing that I talk about is the companies and the people and what they're doing, far more than like the bricks and mortar and the infrastructure of what is also a really cool place. But I think it's more about what that place enables. So I'm the director of Connect Labs Baltimore, which is basically a co-working space for scientists. So we've got labs, offices, co-working space, event space, meeting space. And we try to attract companies that are working here and try to find out what we can do to help them succeed. And a big part of that is a place to work, but it's not the only part. So you mentioned how it takes a village to raise a child, takes a community to raise a startup. We want to help those companies that are here. Importantly, I should make the distinction that they don't have to be startups to be here either. We want to attract companies and organizations that are being here. A lot of what you already mentioned: capital providers, talent providers, mentors, legal, tax, accounting. Like we want banking. We want all the things that it takes to run a successful business to have a presence here, whether they're here as a member or if they come here to do programming or networking. And it's my job to find companies that want to work here, put on events and programming to attract other people within the ecosystem and the community to come to things that are happening here. And to really, I often say, like, do stuff like this where I can be the hype squad for what's going on that's really good in the region.
I like that. The locations are so important in life sciences, right? Especially in this industry where, if you're building a Candy Crush app, right, you can work from anywhere in the world and it's one thing. But when you're building the next therapy or a medical device, like location is important, right? People are in labs a lot of times, right? They're in the facility. You mentioned like other ecosystem providers and stuff. Like, what else do you see as important, like within a building or location, like culturally and facility wise? Like, what are those other components that really make for a really good, kind of startup environment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased and I've drank the Kool-Aid about location being critically important. And in my roles, I've been very very strategic locations that are situated within a specific type of environment. And I think that's one of the things that Wexford does on a national scale right now. But I think in addition to the place, it's the deliberate activation, programming, collisions, and density of sort of activity and energy that's going on in those places. Myra Norton, who I had the pleasure of working for a little while as we overlapped at Hopkins, talked about how sometimes it can be lonely being an entrepreneur. And I think places like Biopark or Connect Labs are the antithesis of that loneliness. Like that you are constantly surrounded by kindred spirits, other people who are trying to do something very difficult or very challenging for the first time, or people who are there to try to support you, to try to celebrate your successes, to try to help you achieve your next milestone. So I think the proximity is really important, having somewhere that's accessible and attractive to people, whether they work or visit for events, but also the deliberate and intentional programming of those spaces and the collisions that seem fortuitous, but are they're on purpose. They say like luck is when, preparation meets circumstance or something like that. Like that, those type of things should happen, even if they happen spontaneously. They were orchestrated to an extent.
Do you have any examples? Like, what are some of the programming and things that you're doing at Connect Labs right now? Like, I talked to someone that was part of a CEO roundtable, that's happening there. So that seems like a pretty great way to help put you around those kindred spirits. But maybe can you talk about that and others that really kind of fit that mold?
Sure. Yeah, so there's a recurring CEO roundtable series that actually predated Connect Labs and was meeting over here behind me across the street at 801 West Baltimore. And now they meet once a month here in Connect Labs. And that's really great because it's some members from Connect Labs, but it's also a lot of other entrepreneurs that are just located throughout Baltimore. And it brings them together. They bring in speaker series, and it just gives a place for them to meet. And a lot of times people say, can I stay before? Can I take a meeting before? Can I hang out after? I'm like, you can. I'd love if you moved in, but of course, we welcome frequent flyer guests as well. There's also Ventures, run out of UMB, that does a monthly programming series from Connect Labs now. They started hosting those over here in the fall, and actually just recently moved their New Ventures lab into the space here down the hall. And then bigger picture within the knowledge community here within Wexford's Biopark, we do a monthly innovation exchange, monthly idea exchange called The Mix that happens downstairs in the assembly space on the second floor that engages a lot of people throughout the community. And then within Connect Labs, we try to have a mix of kind of social and technical or topic-driven events. So we're having a cookie swap in a couple of weeks as the holidays come up. We did a potluck for Thanksgiving. We did pumpkin decorating and a free lunch in the fall. We had the terrace behind me, which I don't think anyone wants to sit on right now. But in the summer, we did like cocktails and hors d'oeuvres and let's have a party out on the terrace, just so people get to know each other, so that the person who's working down the hall or across the street from you, and you feel a bit more part of that community. But then we want to bring topic-driven events as well. So Thermo Fisher is a sponsor of ours, so we bring them in with technical experts to talk about how do you use this piece of instrumentation in your workflow? What could this new development in digital PCR enable you to do that you may not have known? And how can Thermo Fisher support you? Done things similar with funding agencies. So we've had SBIR funding agencies from national, the NIH and NAIAD, it's kind of a mouthful, but they've come and done programming followed by office hours about funding opportunities and how to work with those agencies. We do investor office hours. We've done legal office hours. We've done more sort of back of the house, sort of bookkeeping, financial, so I want to have like the business nuts and bolts things, the technical and scientific things, and then the social and just interaction networking things. So a mix of those that you can opt into. And there's different audiences. Again, some of it's for the members here at Connect Labs, some of it's bringing in external parties, and some of them are open to the university or to the public, the community.
Yeah, that's a really good topic. I'd love to kind of pivot into, or not pivot, but go into. how important is that larger community here? Like, Baltimore, maybe you could talk a little bit, how do you see this community in Baltimore? And like, what do you see as kind of really working? Because Baltimore does have, we got Hopkins, we got Maryland, we've had some big wins in terms of like some big diagnostic startups.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of probably under the radar companies that maybe are emerging, but like, how important is that kind of broader ecosystem?
Yeah. So I always preface this. I think, I remember reading a story you put about your grandfather and how you've got really deep roots here in the ecosystem. I'm a transplant. I'm from Iowa, but I've now spent a quarter of my life here working in Baltimore. And so, I have to preface that I'm new to here, but I've chosen Baltimore twice. Like my wife and I chose to move here, and then we had an opportunity to leave and we chose to stay here. So what attracted me, and I frame a lot of things in my own experience, was the potential of this ecosystem. I think Baltimore has a lot of rich history and a lot of things like that you've mentioned that are successful. And I think it's really well known for great healthcare institutions between the universities and private settings, as well as academic research. And there was a real ambition to do more in translating that research. And if you think of R&D, a lot more of the development to accompany the research that this part of the country is so rich in. And I was really attracted to that call to action at Johns Hopkins 11 years ago when I was first exploring moving out here. And I thought, wow, like the sky's the limit there. Like there's so much potential. And if they're embracing that culturally and aligning resources to that, largely thanks to Christy Weiskill and the efforts that she's done, continues to do over there. I was like, I'd love to be a part of that. I think it's going to work. And if they take a chance on bringing me into that ecosystem, I'd like to be a part of building it if I can help. And thankfully they did. And for selfishly, it was good for me. But I saw in that time, and just again in my own, there's a lot of early momentum that's now been snowballing. And I think that it will all build on itself. So it's not just things that I've been a part of, but when you see other initiatives and you see these two big research behemoths in UMB and Hopkins embracing entrepreneurship, commercialization, translating the research there, academic industry collaboration, research collaborations, clinical trial collaborations, co-locations, economic development. This is all exciting to me. And I think that there's so much potential here. And then you have efforts like the Launch Port, which is probably right around the corner from you where you are. Blackbird Laboratories also over there. Like all these people kind of leaning in. Early Term Ventures around the corner here. Like I forgive me if I'll forget some people. I can't name them all, but there's a lot of really good momentum here. And I think when you've got a workforce here that was historically probably more academic and federal agency, research focused, and then now you're seeing a density of companies and entrepreneurs, and you're seeing wins. That's now taking some of the people that are here, really bright minds, and aligning them to this momentum. And I get excited. I hope it's coming through right now. Like usually when I get talking about these kind of things, I get excited, and you have to, slow me down, try to get away.
You're the hype guy. Hype it. Let's keep hyping.
No, I really think
let's get the buzz going, if you will.
Yeah, well, I hope so. So I like to acknowledge the potential, the progress, and the momentum that we're making. And I think it's really an exciting time to be here. My vision that's shared by a lot of people is that, we go into the future and someone's like, gosh, what was it like when this whole thing was really booming? And now we're one of these thriving entrepreneurial tech ecosystems. Like that's my hope. It's that's what we're all working toward together.
Yeah, that's a good sales pitch for for people looking at Baltimore as an option.
I hope I answered your question.
I think as you know, I run a recruiting company as well, so I recruit people to Baltimore, and so when I hear people say like, oh, I chose Baltimore twice, like that's important. Like people choose where to live, not just for an opportunity, but their next opportunity, right? And the potential, right? I think that's something. And then the city culture and everything else. I mean, that's why when we relocate people, that's what they're doing. When they're not just looking at now, but they are looking at the potential in the future. So
yeah,
it's important.
What I see here is, so you hear small to more a lot, right? So it's an urban ecosystem with a small town feel, like where there's connectivity, where there's people who care, and there's a desire from a lot of people to do more to make this area more attractive and vibrant and thriving. And so you get kind of the benefits of an urban environment and also the feel of a small town ecosystem. And you've got these great health institutions, great research institutions, and now you're starting to see the rest of it kind of catch up, and it's all going to build on itself. I think success begets success. People want to be a part of something that seems exciting and is doing well. And I mean, I really do. I think there's a lot of places that would love to be where we are. And I think you're often looking up, and that's good. It's great to have ambition, but I think it's worth acknowledging and celebrating the progress and what's really happening right now that was maybe once a vision.
What are some of are there any programs or initiatives that you could talk about that are taking place right now that you're seeing that are kind of codifying all that?
Well, yeah, I think, you right around the corner from you, Ecfora Capital puts on a lot of programming that brings people together and has deployed a lot of capital locally to support people. That's really great. And I first met Deb a couple of years ago when she was kind of first starting that. And this is terrific. Like anything that's going to support local entrepreneurs and ecosystem, that's great. I mentioned Blackbird Labs earlier. I think what they're doing is super cool and impactful. Funding academic research and investments into companies, attracting co-investors to the area, and anything that we can do to build a density of talent, because we're blessed with an abundance of great ideas here. The amount of IP and potential is there, but you need the operators to take those ideas and make them a reality. You often need financial resources to take those things and make them, and you need places for those companies to work. And so when you see places like Sinai Hospital create LifeBridge, in what was otherwise an underutilized space within the hospital, when you see Johns Hopkins building the Fast Forward locations and the PAVA Center, when you see what's happening in City Garage, when you see what's happening over here in the Biopark, Spark, BW Tech, building these places to attract these companies, keep them closely located, activate them with events, bring investors in, all of that excites me. So I think there's not just one anecdote. Thankfully, we're not all just kind of hanging our hat on one thing that's working well. I haven't even mentioned some of the things that we've all known for a long time, like TEDCO, who's obviously a great supporter of this, GBC, BDC. So there's a lot of good things kind of coalescing right now. The Tech Hubs Consortium, that's new, right? You and I talked about this before, but I think the goodwill and the collaboration that's gone into the Tech Hubs Consortium is great because it's bringing people together, and hopefully it creates new resources as well, and we can attract some of those to the area. But if nothing else, it's sharpening the narrative and it's bringing people together.
Yeah, I think the collaboration is so important. I mean, you hit on a bunch of them there. Hopefully that our audience is listening to just the number of things that are happening in progress. Like, it's easy to think about. We've seen the stats of investment and jobs over the past couple of years. It's been tough, but I think
I thought you could say the good stuff, because there's been a lot of good stuff.
There's been a lot of good stuff too, but in general,
funding environment the last few years.
Lean funding environment, but in general, I think the message I'm hearing from you is there's a lot of momentum that is building.
So people ask me, was it a boom and a bust? I don't think so. Not at all. I think there's a temporary suppression in funding, but the rise of these efforts that we've been describing, and particularly in life sciences, it's not a passing fad. And this is like a core competency of this city and the researchers in this area. The need is not going away, and I don't see the growth going away. On the S curve of our trajectory collectively, it's a little bit slower the last few years in some of the new funding opportunities, but I'm still really bullish.
I'm too. I share that optimistic attitude. Mark, you guys were a big supporter. You mentioned TEDCO. TEDCO is a really important, or especially early stage kind of investor, but also kind of glue that kind of invest in a lot of the connectivity. And Troy always talks about the collisions he likes to. So, something that you and I've worked on together. So TEDCO we just got an EGF grant, the More Bio program from TEDCO. You were a big supporter for us to help get that grant. The premise for that program is better connecting all of Maryland, right? So how do we better break down silos and connect the Frederick hub and the Montgomery County hub to what's happening here in Baltimore. And I know part of why you kind of came on to support that program with us is because of that passion you have for connectivity. But you know, why did you think that was an important mission that we're on, like to connect all of Maryland better? Tell us about like because we talked a lot about Baltimore today, but let's take a step outward and why it's important.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, and depending on the audience, I'll often sort of frame my narrative different ways, but I really think my focus can't be so narrow, right? Connect Labs is one floor of one building in one city. You know, that's too narrow of a focus, and it's too territorial, and I don't want to create any kind of turf wars or, you know, zero sum types of environments. And so I think the more broadly, think Mid-Atlantic, then you go DMV, then you go state of Maryland. I think all these ecosystems, the more they're thought about as places where companies and capital are being deployed, where new technologies are being developed, where there's exciting initiatives, that it will benefit collectively all of us. And I think someone was once talking to me about how Paris became this kind of mecca for fashion designers, and people flocked to that area because it was exciting and because they wanted to be there. And so the more you can make the region exciting and inviting and welcoming and connected, the more people are going to want to be there. And then it's naturally going to have some of them end up here and some of them end up in other locations. And I think that will benefit all of us. So back when I was on the board of the MBIA, working with like 30 other co-working and incubator spaces across the state, we wanted to do more to highlight Maryland as a region. I often think about the branding of something like Research Triangle Park as, you know, these three discrete cities, but are in a near-ish geographic locale. Why aren't we doing the same thing between Frederick, the I-270 corridor, and Baltimore within Maryland? Like there's a real density right there in that triangle and across the state of Maryland. So like I think we need to highlight Maryland as a region where there's great activation of entrepreneurship spontaneously and through the universities that we're really well known for and the research agencies. And then you kind of can drill down on a specific, you mentioned location. Like I want people to be in this location, obviously, but I want people to think of Maryland as a place for business, for a place for investment, a place for entrepreneurs, a place they want to move their family or keep their family. We graduate a ton of talent in this part of the world. Let's keep them here. Let's align them to opportunities. Let's not be a place where you are from, but a place where you are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So one of the things that I say all the time is Maryland can't continue to thrive unless Baltimore thrives better. So the reason why I say that, and I'd love your thoughts on this kind of thesis, is that, you know, in Frederick, you do have some startup environment. Like Fitzy's doing amazing work out there, like Kathy and her team. You have I-270 Innovation Labs, Doug Bain. He's got a really great kind of incubator space out there. But Frederick's got a lot of space, right? And there's a lot of manufacturing, and there's a lot of, you know, production, CMC growth. Same with Montgomery County. There's a lot of established, more commercial, larger businesses down there. But you look at any successful ecosystem, it's a pipeline, right? The innovation, you need the university pipeline. That's so important to be able to commercialize that and keep it in the state. So I think that the better we can invest in one hub, like it's gonna translate out. And if Montgomery County and Frederick are thriving as these kind of commercial manufacturing and production places, Baltimore's more attractive because you know what? When my therapy is successful in phase 2, I got a place to go right down the road to start making it. So that's kind of the thesis I've shared, but also why I do have a place in my heart for Baltimore's continued kind of drive.
Well, clearly I do too. I've been working in the city the whole time that I've lived here, and 3 places that are located in the city. And so it matters a lot to me that people see Baltimore as a viable option, an attractive option, a place that people want to be. And I probably touched on this earlier, but there's lots of universities. I grew up in a college town. I think Baltimore's like a big college town. There's lots of colleges here. There's lots of universities. There's 2 massive R1 institutions right here with great health systems. And the amount of technology development there, the amount as a magnet for people that want to work with them, you know, Illumina Health is right across the street here because they want to do a lot more with the university ecosystem that's right here from UMB, and like that those academic institutions can not only be drivers of the basic research that develops IP and technologies that educates the students to create a talented workforce, but they can be a place where you do clinical trials. It can be a place where you do research collaborations. There's I have to check my math because I don't work there anymore, but there's over 40 active industry and academic research collaborations flowing through Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures. That's exciting, and those are driven by the bright minds at those academic institutions. I'm getting more up to speed with my friends and partners over at UMB to all the exciting things that are happening here too, but those are magnets. The fourth floor of this building, the Center for Translational Engineering and Medicine, is the first of its kind collaboration between College Park engineers and Baltimore medical faculty working in the same place to translate new technologies and inventions to actually make an impact. And they're really bringing in kind of, I don't want to say entrepreneurial minded, but people who think about the application of their research. So we're seeing the faculty researchers there not only thinking about the basic research, but their applied research. And those things are happening because of these big academic engines who are huge drivers of what's going on here in Baltimore.
Are there, speaking of all that's happening at the university, like there's got to be a big value proposition for Connect Labs being right there. Like, what are some of the things that, like, are there areas or are there things that like you're seeing companies are really excited about being close in proximity to UMB, or is like?
I sure hope so, obviously, and again, acknowledging my own bias here, but I think that collaboration between the academic researchers and the health system is really attractive for people who want to be here. The students that are nearby, they can be employees. You know, I talked to people who went to school here that are so excited to see this part of the city being developed and seeing how much is going on here between, you know, just community engagement, retail, dining, and places to work and have events. But I think that Center for Translational Engineering and Medicine will be a real attractor for people that want to work. There's also 40 university cores right across the street here that any company in the biopark can access at a huge discount. So you're getting to leverage university resources by being a part of the biopark. So that's a big driver. If you want to use, you know, confocal microscopy core across the street, you don't have to buy your own confocal microscope or move into a place that has one. You can do that collaboration with them. So I think the move-in ready flexibility and like fully built out space that Connect Labs is, and the proximity to the university across the street is a real draw. And I do, while I'm potentially being a hypocrite to talk about location, this one, I'm looking at downtown right there. It's less than a mile away. Ravens and Orioles play right there. You're a stone's throw from the train station, quick drive from the airport. It's really conveniently located, not just because of the university across the street. It's situated, I think, well within the Baltimore ecosystem.
Yeah. Location's important too, right? Like, you know, where in the city you're at. You guys are a really good spot. Well, that's exciting. I didn't know about the cores. Like, that's again the value prop.
It's great. I mean, so Hopkins does something similar, right? So I don't want to I don't want to pit one against the other, but it's really powerful when the academic institution is making resources like that available to third parties that happen to be, you know, located nearby.
Yeah, I mean that's how you reduce the friction for translating your idea and your research forward. I mean, and let's be honest. I guess that's a good, like, reducing the friction is what we're all trying to do, right? That sounds like a big part of your job is reducing the friction for startups.
Yeah, you know, people talk about time to market or cost to market. I think like hassle to market. We are move-in ready. You don't have to worry about getting your fume hood installed and inspected and certified. And you don't have to get calibrating the flow cytometer. Like, we're doing all of that for you. Like, it is ready to go. You do you. We're going to do the property management and real estate.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I am not in life science space. That's a whole nother level. But there's so much stuff on an entrepreneur's mind every day.
It's incredibly hard. Like, my hat's off to you and everyone else who's doing that. So that's, again, back to the beginning. My job is to make that easier. It's incredibly difficult. So how can we align resources, facilities, and other things to make what you're trying to do a higher probability of success?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everything you do, man. I've known you for a long time, and you've always been such an advocate and such a powerful ally for not just Baltimore, but just in general for the startup ecosystem, which, again, like we said in the beginning of the call, like, it's a village. You know, there's a village in Baltimore. There's a larger Maryland village. we're actually having an event in January called the CAR-T Corridor, where we're trying to connect like UPenn, the CAR-T, Carl June assets up there with a lot of the commercial CAR-T manufacturing that happens down here, like Arcellx and Miltenyi and AstraZeneca.
Well,
So like you said,
don't leave Kirsten out, up at U City Square in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's a lot, but to our point, like that's again, with Wexford knowledge community, these knowledge communities have layers, and you mentioned that earlier. And so I think the more that people like you can kind of continue to amplify, and we can work together to amplify these different villages that reduce friction. I mean, the better we're going to kind of drive through any of these kind of headwinds and continue to kind of ultimately what it is. We're trying to get products to market, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
Yeah, there's a great opportunity, and there's a lot of resources to help hopefully bring those things to fruition. And I'm happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy to celebrate other people's successes.
So Mark, we're in December. We're in the final sprint of the year. I'm gonna throw just like not even a curveball, but just thought, when you look into 2026, what are the things that you're excited about? Like let's wrap up with a positive note here today.
Yeah.
What are you excited about?
Positive the whole time. I like to think of myself as a pragmatic optimist.
I like that.
So with information, I choose to believe the good outcomes are more likely than the bad outcomes. But there's been a lot of talk of maybe 2024 will be a better year than 2023, and 2025 will be better than 2024. But I think there's been a loosening recently in M&A and IPO activity that'll shake loose some capital. Interest rates have come down a little bit recently and may again in the future. I think the more that we can deploy some capital to these opportunities, the more momentum and progress will continue to build. But I think new things like Connect Labs just opening, 4MLK just opening here in 2024, the Blackbird space opening in City Garage, and the new manufacturing space between Launchport and Early Charm. There's a lot of really cool things that are coalescing right now. And so I think 2026 is going to be even better than 2025.
Amen. I like that pragmatic optimism. Well, Mark, this has been great, man. I really enjoyed talking with you. I always do. I enjoyed partnering with you and all the work that you guys do. Connect Labs is awesome. I mean, I will give it a little plug, like the event space, the facilities. I mean, it's set up and designed to be a place to convene. And I love, as a convener myself, I love that. So if you haven't been by Connect Labs, definitely reach out to Mark after this, and we'll put you can reach out to him on LinkedIn, but definitely do. It's an awesome place to visit and see and be a part of if you're growing a company.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'll send you a check in the mail.
Well, hey, thank you all for joining us. A couple things to look forward to coming up next. Next week, we have an interview with MTech. So MTech's doing some really amazing things in the Department of Defense and dual use space. So they have over $1 billion in funding opportunities that they convene and support. In fact, one of the things we're going to be talking about is JP Morgan. So BioBuzz will be at JP Morgan this year, but most importantly, we're going to be there for Qnova's Life Science Partnering event. Last year, they had over 1,500 companies attend for partnering meetings. So unlike some of the others, it's not a paid event, so you can sign up and attend. It is limited, so they don't. You're not going to see a lot of vendors and law firms there unless you're a sponsor. It's really core partnering activities. So there's going to be some universities. There's going to be some other country economic development there. So, I just want to do a plug for that. We'll be out there. We're sharing a lot of stuff through our BioBuzz platform on that. So if you are going to be at JP Morgan, definitely check the Qnova Life Sciences partnering forum out, and MTech will be a part of it. We're going to dive in with Sean, CEO of MTech, next week. So come back and visit us on next week's program, where we'll really jump into building a community around dual use, and there's a lot of dual use happening. In fact, the Tech Hub initiative that Mark, you were talking about earlier, that's a focus on dual use here in Baltimore. So I'm excited about that conversation as well. And as always, thank you all for joining us. Mark, again, another final farewell, but thank you for everything you shared today and just being part of the growing momentum that we're all working towards here.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, Chris.
Enjoy. All right, man. Well, enjoy your Friday, and we